Hi, welcome to Have Roots Will Travel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. If this is a returning visit for you, welcome back to episode number 41. We are currently exploring Les Filles du Roi, or the King's Daughters, which is a special series that I have been doing featuring biographies of all the individuals, King's Daughters or Filles du Roi, who came and basically were the founding mothers of Quebec. And so we are going to dive right in a bit. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that you all know that I have a Have Roots Will Travel website, and I am on Twitter and on Facebook and of course on this channel. Please like and subscribe and get notified of any new content. That all helps me out so much. For those of you just joining us, Les Filles du Roi was a program begun in 1663 by the intendant of New France at the time, Jean Talon. And basically what it was to be able to inhabit New France, they had to bring some ladies across from France. And this became known over time as Les Filles du Roi for various reasons. I go into great depth about this in a video called Les Filles du Roi, the Program 2.0. It's a video that I produced quite a number of months ago, just to give you kind of like a bird's eye view of what your particular ancestor would have gone through. And I think it's worth looking at just to give you that background and that detail. So let's get started with the next lady we're going to be looking at, and her name is Marie Piton. Let's get to know Marie. Now, Marie Piton is actually not one of my great-grandmothers. She is the great-grandmother of my best friend and also one of my professional colleagues as well. So, unbeknownst to them, they're actually related. Let's get to know Marie a little bit. So Marie was born in 1651 in the 4th arrondissement of Paris. Remember that Paris is laid out in a circular manner, and so she is in that 4th ring, if you will, in the parish of St. Paul. Her parents were Rémy Pito and Marie Poilin. So the church that you're looking at, the picture of it in the left side, is St. Paul's Church, and it was constructed between 1627 and 1641, so it was a fairly new church when Marie was born. It was the first one in Paris to kind of abandon the Gothic style and adopt a more Baroque one, so it kind of has that uniqueness to it. Now, this arrondissement that she was born into was called the Hôtel de Ville, is also known as Hôtel de Ville, and it's situated on the right bank of the River Seine. The Ile de la Cité has been inhabited, that's another name for it, since the 1st century BC, when it was occupied by the Parisii tribe, I hope I'm saying that right, of the Gauls. The right bank was first settled in the 5th century. Since the end of the 19th century, Le Marais has been populated by a significant Jewish population, and the Rue des Rosiers being at the heart of this community. So if you're visiting Paris, this is kind of the road she would have been traveling along. And I think that it is fair to say that the 4th arrondissement is one that is absolutely a very kind of a representative of how old the city really is. And I think that in traveling it, you begin to see that sense of history and the sense of almost kind of awestruck in terms of, this is where she's coming from. This is the kind of history, and she's going into this brand new country and coming from this very old place. So a very interesting dichotomy. So Marie left for New France. She was recruited as a fille du roi at about the age of 17. She arrived on La Nouvelle France. She carried with her a dowry of about 60 pounds. She arrived on July 3rd, 1668. And she joined some of my great-grandmoms, Françoise Aubé, that we saw on video number 7. We saw Marie Charpentier, number 30. And Marie Wainville was number 10. Marie-Madeleine Philippe, number 6. And Marie Dallon, number 10. So she was hanging out with my great-grandmom. So hopefully their paths crossed and they bonded on this extraordinary journey that they were all on. So who was this groom she selected? Well, his name was Jean Bergevin, dit Langevin, and he was born in 1635, which would make him about 16 years older than Marie, which is not uncommon. He was born in the parish of Saint-Jacques, in the city of Alger, in the ancient province of Anjou. His parents, their names were Maître Bergevin and Marie Piton. Now, he became a Carignan regiment soldier and arrived in New France in 1665. Let's have a look at where Jean comes from. He comes from the city of Angers. It's about 200 miles southwest of Paris. It's now part of the Maine-et-Loire Département, as we call it. Before the French Revolution, it was the capital of the province of Anjou. Angers has a rich and resplendent history, not only with the Plantagenet dynasty, but also was a place where education and philosophy bloomed, particularly during the reign of King René of Anjou, who was born in Angers at the castle. The church where where Jean would have been baptized is pictured here, is called l'Église Saint-Jacques, les Angers, and dates from approximately the 12th century. The castle, called Chateau Dalje, is probably the castle I need to see so far from the ones we've seen. This castle was originally built by the Romans as a fortress. A castle was built here in the 9th century and became an important part of the protection against invaders. The English used it again during their rule in the 12th century, and then it was captured and used by the French. By the 13th century, it was expanded to the size it now occupies on the top right, the top middle of your screen. And the castle has had so many uses throughout the centuries. It was used as a church, a military academy, an actual home, and even into the Second World War, where it was used as an armory. Today, there are tours for the castle, and it houses the largest collection of medieval tapestries in the world. To say this is on the bucket list is there's just something about this castle that as I studied it, and there's just so much more information, I didn't want to go. This is not a PowerPoint about this castle, but I absolutely need to see this place. And in the middle postcard is an actual picture of Angers from 1657, which is pretty close to when Jean would have left that area. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. That's kind of a depiction of Angers at that time. So Marie and Jean were married on November 26, 1668 in Quebec City. On the top part of your screen is their actual marriage record from the church, where it clearly states their name. And then we have a picture of the churches that now exist. Obviously did not look like this in 1668, but this is the location where they would have been married. So Jean and Marie established themselves in Bourg-Royal, Charlesbourg. A little bit of history about this area. It was established in 1626. The parish of Notre-Dame-des-Anges is one of the oldest in Quebec. The seigneury extended from the Charles River, hence its name as Charlesbourg. But in 1665, so about 50 years later, Jean Talon, the intendant, wanted to establish some new villages. So he said, I want the church to be in the middle, kind of controlling everything, truly. And then you have the concession, where the people would purchase land or have land, was directly facing, instead of the river, as most concessions at the time faced, were put in a linear fashion. This was in a spoke star-like fashion. So Bourg-Royal was formed that way, Charlesbourg, and the Petite Auvergne was also laid out this way. Very unusual. There's a couple of other places in Canada that are laid out this way, but it's very, very unusual kind of land allocation, if you will. And eventually, you can see here in the aerial view, it continues to this day to have that approach. That is exactly that star shape. You can see the parish church here that is as it exists now. And I also wanted to draw your attention to where exactly Charlesbourg is in relation to Quebec City, so you can have an idea of like, Quebec City is very large and has a lot of territory to it. And then we have a small kind of illustration that was done in the 1800s of Bourgeois Royal in 1696. So I thought that was really kind of an interesting thing to throw at you. In 1678, Jean was able to acquire, along with an associate, the fishing rights to Lac Beauport from the Seigneur Robert Gifford. And this, all they had to do was supply the Seigneur with enough fish during at Christmas time, at Lent, that sort of thing, and the rest was theirs to keep and to market. Let's give a little bit of history of Beauport because the family would ultimately move here. And Beauport was actually one of the oldest seigneuries in Quebec. It was founded in 1634 by Robert Gifford, who received the seigneurie from the Compagnie des 100 Associés, the 100 associates from France. But it was a very slow growth. But by 1698, 400 or so French colonists settled just east of the River Beauport. And I guess the flour mill and the agriculture were all part of what really led them to say, hey, this is really something. And it continued to grow and grow and grow. And by 1845, Beauport was recognized as a municipality, and then it kind of broke off into different little divisions, and things like little towns like Gifford and Villeneuve and Montmorency were all part of that. Now, after 1960, what happened is Beauport and all of these other little towns began really becoming urban centers, suburbs, bedroom communities of Quebec City. And by 1976, these 7 municipalities were reassembled into one city. And in 2002, that city was amalgamated into Quebec City. Phew. Then that's how you get it down in 300 years. But each of these small little municipalities are part of the whole of it. And so if you have ancestors in any of these different places, each of them has their own history, their own incredible kind of connection. But we are studying Beauport right now, and this is where Marie and Jean would carry out and form most of their family. I want to draw your attention, first of all, to the left hand of your screen, where we see the 1681 census, where we have Jean at 45, and then his wife, 30. So remember, I mentioned the difference in ages. We have their children, Jean, who's 12, Joseph, Ambroise, Marie, who's 2.5. It is said that they have 1 gun and 7 enfants en valeur. So that means they have about 5 acres of land. Now, let's have a look at the children. Now, their first son, Jean, passes away at only a few days old. And then their second son, Jean, marries Marguerite Meunier. His wife dies in childbirth. He next marries Marie-Rose Brazeau, with whom he has 2 children, who both reach adulthood. Marie-Reine also passes away. His next wife was Marie-Ursule Arca, and they would have 10 children together, 7 of whom reached adulthood. Joseph did not marry. Jacques died before the 1681 census. He's not listed on that census. Marie-Ambroise married Guillaume Falardeau and had 8 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Marie married Simeon Morin and had 12 children, but only 5 of whom made it to adulthood. Louis marries Marguerite Tessy and has 10 children, 4 of whom make it to adulthood. Ignace marries Geneviève Tessy, yes, that's the sister of Louis' wife Marguerite. They have 9 children, all of whom make it to adulthood. Next, we have an unnamed daughter who died at birth, which is very unusual, usually they're named. And finally, we have Jean-François, who marries Marie-Madeleine Tessy, yes, the younger daughter, the younger sister of the other 2. And they have 8 children together, all of whom reach adulthood. So yes, it does mean that 3 brothers married 3 sisters. Just love that connection. So the Tessiers and the Bergevin are very, very linked together in terms of genealogy and all of that. So note to self, note to self. So Jean passed away at the age of 68 on February 2nd, 1703. Remember, he was much older than her. By 1706, Marie would then transfer ownership of all her assets under the condition that her sons Ignace and Louis take care of her. She'd go on to live another 22 years, dying at the remarkable age of 78. It does actually state that she's 80 and a few years in the burial record. And that would mean that she would have been much older when she arrived. It's possible, but not likely. I think it's more likely that the common practice of adding years to a life to celebrate the wisdom of the age is completely different than today, where we're subtracting. Back then, they added it because it just made you that much more special. And that's a picture of the cimetière where they would both have been buried. And so we celebrate Marie Piton's life, not only for the length of it, but also for the extraordinary contribution she made to New France. She was a young girl from Paris coming and marrying a much older man. She made a success of her marriage, which lasted over 30 years, produced 10 children, and innumerable descendants, and was also one of the pioneers of Bourg-Royal and of Beauport. And for that, we thank her. She truly was a woman of substance. And until the next time, I will bid you adieu and au revoir, and we'll see you on video number 42.